sight of each other, Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. I mean, I'm sure they're very dutiful and I'm sure they're very respectful, but it seems every single day now they have to face each other. Last night it was at another televised debate. If you read the commentators, it was actually, you chalk this one up possibly to Mr. Sunak. It would appear that he came out on top. I did watch some of it. I have to confess that towards, well, I won't say towards when I fell asleep, because that might indicate one person, but I didn't unfortunately make it all the way through, but that's probably because of the hours I work. Someone who I'm sure watched every second on it and could now give me a diligent report that would grace the pages of the Wall Street Journal, should I so desire, is Business, Energy, Industrial Secretary of State Kwasi Kwarteng, who joins me now. I remind you, of course, Kwasi Kwarteng is one of the most prominent backers of Liz Truss. How did your candidate fare last night, Mr. Kwarteng? Good morning.
I think she did well. I think she put the case across convincingly. I mean, and Rishi did well. I mean, he gave, I thought, a very fluent,
one of his better ones,
performance.
Yeah.
But I didn't agree with what he said. But I think he performed well.
Now, one of the lines of, let's say, of discord between the two candidates is Mr. Sunak's claim that the candidate that you prefer has made 70, 80, 90 billion pounds worth of tax promises that she simply cannot afford. How do you respond on her behalf?
Well, I think that the current course, where you've got a cost of living crisis, you've got people's weekly shop going up, and you're saying that we're going to increase taxes. We've already increased taxes to a 70-year high. So taxes in this country have never been higher since the socialist government of Clement Attlee, which happened a lot before many of us were born.
Indeed.
70-year high tax. And the answer to this situation where you're facing a recession is more tax. That seems to me completely wrong. And actually, Liz, in the first debate, only a few weeks ago, said that we were risking a recession. Now, I don't think the recession is inevitable. But if you're facing rising interest rates, and we saw interest rates go up yesterday by 0.5 percentage point, which is higher than in 27 years, and you're actually putting up taxes, that isn't a way to deal with recession. You can't, what the economists say, tighten monetary policy by lifting interest rates and tighten fiscal policy by raising taxes at the same time. That's not a way to get growth into the economy. And Liz has been very focused on this idea of growth, of getting incentives into the economy, and also trying to, incentivize wealth creation.
But isn't Mr. Sunak's point a fair one, Mr. Kwarteng, in that if we don't act now, our children, or indeed in your case your grandchildren or your grandchildren's children, will actually be paying for this? That point does seem to resonate with a lot of people, Mr. Kwarteng.
I think it's the wrong point to make. I think the thing that our grandchildren and children will, well, I'm trying to explain it, are going to be very concerned about is leaving an economy that is a stagnant economy, that there's no growth, there's no incentives, there's no investment. And I think a high tax model, a high growth model is what we want. A high tax model, high and low growth model is wrong. And that's what Sajid Javid said. I mean, I was very interested that Sajid Javid, who after all was Rishi's boss in the Treasury until about 2.5 years ago, Sajid said very clearly that the risk is that we're sleepwalking into a high tax, low growth model. And that's the real danger. That's what we've got to avoid. And no other country in the world, I know you take an interest in international affairs, Nick.
Indeed.
No other country is saying that, we're going to help our people in a cost of living crisis by lifting their taxes, by taking more of their money when their real incomes are being squeezed. That's not a sensible way to deal with a looming recession.
Can I get you onto the rather grim set of announcements that were made yesterday concerning recession, interest rates and other
Absolutely.
problems? The Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, is under attack from some quarters for not taking action sooner, as his former chief economist Andy Haldane suggested, and continuing to print money, the rather ugly way of talking about quantitative easing. Are any of those charges fair?
Look, I think we've got to look at the facts. So the Bank of England target, I think inflation is 2%.
It is.
And they predicted 13.3%. So if your target is 2% and you're predicting 13.3%, I would suggest that something's gone very wrong. And we've got to look at this. We've got to look at what's gone wrong. I think quantitative easing is part of it. I think there is an argument to say that they should have raised rates a bit sooner. Easy to say with hindsight, of course.
Of course.
But I think, if your target's 2% and you're predicting 13.3%, something's gone wrong, and we need to have a look at this and see what's happened.
Now, for one newspaper today, one of the things that has gone wrong for the Daily Mirror is that two of the key people are MIA, missing in action. Boris Johnson is off on his delayed honeymoon. Nadim Zahawi is on holiday with his family. They argue they should both, or certainly the latter, should be at his post. Should Mr Zahawi be at the country?
I think Mr. Zahawi, Nadim Zahawi, is a great chancellor. I think
That
he's
wasn't
someone who.
the question, respectfully, sir.
Well, look, I think he is completely on top of the situation. I was just speaking to him yesterday, in fact, and he's completely aware of what's going on. And his officials and he are working very hard to see how best we can.
Shouldn't he be here?
We can deal with this. I think he's on top of the situation. I think that, his arrangements are up to him. I can't.
Well, we don't
I don't
need
even
him.
know where he is, frankly.
No, I don't. And even if I did, I wouldn't say it because it's not fair. But if you hit the darkest day, as you referenced, in some 27 years by some measures, and the Chancellor of the Exchequer is, for purpose of debate, on holiday in Italy, well, he may as well stay there. He can do it by remote control forever.
No, I think that's not the case. I think he's someone who takes his job very seriously and is completely abreast of what's going on.
One of the other things that's concerning my listeners, as I'm sure you, as Business Secretary, are the concerns with water, possible hose pipe bans, a drought around the corner. Many of my listeners, Secretary of State, find it a little bit rich that the water bosses paid themselves a total of more than £15 million with an average income within total package of £1.7 million at a time when my listeners can't water their back garden. Action needs to be taken, doesn't it?
I think we need to look at this as well. I mean, I think that the fact that we've got these hosepipe bans, and we've had them before, is not something which suggests that our infrastructure is in a good place. But in terms of the water companies, that's up to them. I've never, as Business Secretary, decided or commanded people to get certain remuneration levels. I'm not a socialist. But at the same time, I think markets which aren't working need to be looked at.
And do we also need to look at the events at Amazon at the warehouse in Tilbury, where workers have been offered a 35p pay rise, 35p an hour pay rise?
Well, look, as Business Secretary, I take a real interest in wages and wage levels. This particular case is new to me. I haven't been told about it.
I see.
And I'd have to know the particular circumstances. I mean, we do this thing where we come onto morning shows and then you read me a specific story.
Okay.
And sometimes I'm abreast of it, and other times, I've been on the car from my house here, and I
on
haven't
the
necessarily.
car, or even in the car.
No, even in the car. I was driven.
I trust
think
they let
kindly
you in the car.
provided
Now, they're not making you ride on
taxi.
the roof again, are they?
No, not at all. No.
They must let you in there for security reasons. Okay, don't worry. It is the GMB are furious.
I'd love to. But Nick, I'd love to look at more of the specifics of this case. This is the first I've heard of it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, listen, you'd definitely be in the car if you were the Chancellor of the Exchequer when Liz Truss triumphs and is the PM.
Well,
That's going to be your role, Mr. Kwarteng.
No. We're not counting any chickens before they're hatched. I think it's a close contest. I'm hopeful that Liz wins, but it's certainly not over yet.
But it is a job that you would take.
I'm not even thinking about that. I think we've got to take each stage as it comes. And Liz, I'm determined that Liz can win.
Kwasi Kwarteng, thank you for your time. You are, of course, Secretary of State for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Let's come back to the conversation about the Governor of the Bank of England. Two charges, I would argue: continuing to print money and not taking more precipitate action. And we'll hear what you're saying on this with the text, tweets and emails. Oh, no, good. Paul in Portsmouth, we've got him. Paul, you're on the radio. Your view, Andrew Bailey and Generally the Bank of England. Good morning.